Alright guys, welcome back to part 3 of session 82 of Java Full Stack Made Easy. Here in this session we were talking about the Spring Data JPA industry standard. Previous session we have already stored a superhero object using a save method from the Spring Data JPA. So in this session we will be talking about the get all and the get by ID. So let's just have a quick recap of the things that we have discussed in our previous session. So if you remember, these are the layers that we have created: the entity class, the repository, the DTO, service IMPL, and the controller to create a simple CRUD operation using the modern Java and the industry standard that is followed. So in this session we will be writing the get all method and the get by ID. So these three things, the entity, DTO, and the repository, remains the same because the repository contains the built-in functions for the common CRUD operations. Entity remains the same, we are not changing the structure of that entity. DT also remains the same. So service IMPL, and the controller are the only three things that will be changed. So we know that service is an interface that actually tells what all methods can be utilized, or what all methods are created. Service IMPL contains all that business logic of these service methods that we have created, and the controller is used to create the endpoints. So let's have a quick recap of the things that we have discussed in the previous session. So we already know that the controller has only one endpoint now, that is the post mapping, right, which was to store the superhero into the database. Then we had a request DTO and a response DTO. Then we had an entity, and we have the repository will not be changed. So the things that I'm going to change will be the superhero service. Now in the service I want to have a get all method. So this get all method does not take any argument, it has to return all the superheroes that are available in the database. So I will return it as a list of superheroes, right? So a list of superhero, what we know that we are not returning superheroes there, right? So we want to return it as a superhero response. So that's why I'm taking this DTO. I don't want to expose the entity directly by writing a list of superhero. So I'm writing it as list of superhero response, right? So similarly, the moment I write a method over here, this is the implementation class. So I have to override that method here as well. So let's go ahead and override that method. So in the previous session, we have created a create method. Let us now override the method get all here. Now while overriding this get all method, once again what I'm gonna do is I will simply call the repository, and then what I'm gonna do is that I will return all the superhero response. That means the repository dot find all method is something which I will call and then return the data there. But there will be one problem that we will encounter the moment we are saying the find all. Let us understand what would be that problem. So when I say repository dot find all, now this find all is actually returning, you notice it here, when I write a repository dot find all, it is returning me the list of superheroes. I am not returning a list of superheroes, I'm actually returning a list of superhero response, which is not the list of superhero, right? So because we don't want to expose the entity directly, that is why we have created the uh, DTOs, right? So now what I will do is to make our life easy, like if you remember in the previous session also, while I was returning a response like this superhero response, I have to take that entity, and out of that entity I have taken all these properties. So this is something extra that I have done in the previous session. Similarly here also I have to do that. For every superhero that is retrieved, I have to take the ID of that superhero and send it to the superhero response, take the name, and add that or map that to a superhero response. Similarly power and the universe, everything, all the properties of superhero has to be taken, and that has to be mapped to a superhero response, which I have done in the previous session like this. But doing it for all that would obviously take a lot of time, right? So what I will do here is I'm gonna create a mapper type of method which will be used in terms of mapping. So I will, yeah, obviously mark this method as private, because this method is going to be used only in the IMPL. It will not be related to the controller and everything. So I will return a superhero response from here. So this particular method will return a superhero response, and let's call it as to a response to this particular method. And this particular method will take a superhero object. Now you notice what I'm doing here. So it will take a superheroes object, let's call it as heroes, and then it will map all the properties to the superhero response object. So it has to return that. So what I'm gonna do is I will simply say return the superhero response. That is actually a new superhero response is something which I am returning. So whoever calls this particular toResponse method, they will give me a superhero, and I will map all the properties of the superhero to the superhero response, and then I will store this, I will return this record, right? So this is a record. Superhero response that we have created is actually a record. You can see it here. Superhero, sorry, it is what, a class. So we could have created it as a response. So I did not create it as a record. So what I will do is I will say superhero response. We know that superhero response contains a constructor that takes an argument, so which is name, power, and the universe, right? And also I think it takes the ID, name, power, universe, and the, yes, the long ID. So this is something which I want now. So let's say this will take hero dot. So first of all, I'll uh, I'll use this method which has name, power, universe, and ID. Okay, so heroes dot get name, heroes dot get power, heroes dot get universe, heroes dot get ID. So all this has to be taken from the heroes, map that, return that particular instance. So that's what I'm doing in the response here. So what advantage this response method gives me? The advantage of this response method will be what? I will not be writing all of these details here, right? So what I can simply do is what? I can simply say, instead of writing this superhero saved and all, so the response and returning the response, I can simply say what? Return toResponse. That method I will call here. So return toResponse, and then what? Repository dot save directly can be now called here, right? So repository dot save the hero. So if I call that here, because I have created this particular method which takes a hero object and converts all its property to a response and returns me the response. So you can see that here. So what this method does, it takes the entity and then converts, maps all those properties and converts it into a response DTO, returns the DTO. So because of this method, I am now eliminating these two lines. So similarly, I will use that here. For every instance of this find all, what I'm gonna do is I will convert every single superhero into what? Into a superhero response. So to do that, we know that it returns us a list. So I'll do a stream, then I will map the data here. So while mapping this data, we have already discussed about the maps, filters, and everything in Java 8 features, right? So what I will say, I will say this of type what? toResponse. So return me a toResponse and then create an instance of this and return that as a list to me. Okay, so by doing this, what we are doing is every single object that is returned, so that will actually be mapped to the response DTO. This find all gives me one thing every time. It returns me one object of an entity, superhero entity. So that will be converted into a superhero response. So all of that will be converted and will be returned. Fine. So let's just save it and go to the controller now. So we have this controller, and inside the controller now we have to perform the get mapping. So let's go ahead and create a get mapping for this. Now in this get mapping, we know that we have to simply return everything, right? So for this, I will simply say that it returns me a response entity. The response entity is not just a superhero response. Now it is the response entity of type list of superhero response, right? And for this I will call it as the get all itself. So let's just say this as get all, and the argument, this get all does not take any argument because user is not going to give me any request here. So I'll just remove that argument from here, and then the response entity, it will just return me what? The response entity will be okay, and yes, I will not give any body and all, because by default itself, if I don't write all this, I can simply say uh, it will be the okay response entity here, and then the body can be provided. So the body is what? Service. We have service dot get all method I will call here. That's it. Okay, so response entity. Now let's check. Yeah, so list has to be imported. So I just hit a control space to import that particular list. Now let's save it and go to the postman. Sorry, first of all I have to stop this application from running and rerun this application so that we get this method running as well. So Spring Data application, just right click on this and run this as a Java application. So I run it. So once it executed successfully, what I will do is I already have the get post method available there. Let's first check what's the problem here. Illegal state exception, ambiguous yeah, superhero controller. That is because of this post mapping. So this will not be a post mapping stuff. This will be a get mapping. So let's just change it to the get mapping and let's rerun this application once again and now check the details. So now everything looks fine. Let's go to postman and let's just hit the get method that returns us all the superheroes. As of now I have only one superhero stored in the database, so I'm getting that one single superhero available in the database. So we have actually created a post method also to post these superheroes. So let's post a few more superheroes. Like maybe in this case I will create Hitman, Bat, Marvel, same. Okay, so two superheroes I will create. Two IDs will be obviously created. So let's get that and see whether we are able to get all the superheroes or not. So it has become Hotman, not Hitman. No issues. Once I create the update endpoint, I will be changing it to that. Fine. So next thing is the get by ID. So one thing we are done, that is get all. So once again, if I want to get the get by ID implemented here, let's go ahead and see how are we going to do that now. So for the get by ID, we know that the get by ID returns one single superhero to us. So again, what we have to do is in the service, we have to go and create a method that returns a single superhero response. And when we are doing a get by ID in the repository, that is the CRUD repository, it actually returns us an optional of superhero. So I will create the return type of this as optional itself. For optional also, we have discussed this concept in Java 8 features. What is optional, how do we create an empty optional object, and what exactly is the optional dot off, and all those things we have already discussed that. So it will return an optional of type superhero response obviously, and we will call this as what, get by id, get superhero by id. And this is going to take a long type of id because that is the type of id that we have defined in the superhero class. So let's just save it. And yes, obviously in the impl class I have to implement that particular method. So let's implement that method here. Let's write this mapper method above so that it will be easy for you to understand the mapping is done. Yes, so let's write it here, or maybe let's just write it after defining this constructor and everything. All right, so that looks good now. Let's have the implementation method here, that is get by id. So this implementation method, we know that it is going to return us an optional. So what I will do is I will simply say it is going to return an optional, get by id, all that is fine. So let's simply say now by default it is returning an empty optional. So we will say it is going to return us what? Return a repository dot get by id, right? So this is the method that we are looking for. So get by id, it should take the long id, that is what it should return us, right? So and it is returning what? It is returning an optional to us, right? So now you see it is returning an optional of what type? It is returning us an optional of type superhero, not the superhero response. So that is why once again what we have to do is we have to map this particular data as well to the to response. So let's just map this optional dot find by id, and then let's yeah, it's not a stream. So what we will do is it returns us a superhero. So to response we will say superhero is what it returns, and let's just do a get by id there, right? And that should take a superhero dot, yeah, it returns an optional dot off, right? So let's see, yeah, this returns superhero directly. So we have to do what? Optional dot off, sorry, so optional dot off, All right, so this looks good. Now let's see the error. Let's just check it. What it says: superhero response cannot be resolved to a variable. So let's just say optional dot off. All right, so that's fine. So let's just save it, and let's once again go to the controller, and then try and get this response. Try and create a uh, get mapping that gets the data based on the ID provided. So I'll have one more get mapping here, which will take a path variable, which is going to be an ID. So it is a get mapping, and this will take what? This will take a ID as its argument, and then response entity. Now this is not a response entity of list of superheroes. It is going to return just one single superhero response. So I'll just say one single thing, and let's call it as get by ID, and this takes one argument, right? So that argument is the ID, which we write it as the path variable. We have discussed that before as well. So it will be a path variable of type long, because the ID is of type long. So that's what we will take here, and then the service dot get by ID is what we will write here. Okay, so service dot get by ID. Now it does a get by ID, and then what we have to do is that we have to do a get to get it. Okay, so service dot get by ID, and the response entity is of type that. Let's check that cannot convert from superhero response to response entity of superhero dot response. Okay, so this is what it is, the response entity that I am returning. So we have to return a response entity dot okay, or maybe found or anything. Okay, so let's say service dot get by ID is fine, dot we have to return it as a response entity, right? So let's return it as response entity dot okay, and then service dot get by ID dot get. All right, so let's just save it and see the result here now. So let's just save, relaunch it. I will stop this and restart it and see whether I will be able to get the data or not. All right, so I have all these details. Now I will say slash find me the ID2. That should find me the hitman. So it is finding me hitman. I will find 3, and that actually finds me that actually gives me an error. So in the later stages, when we create exceptions, we will stop our application from sending this or getting terminated abruptly like this, because we have not yet created the exception, or we have not created any negative case, right? So if the entity is not found, that means in case if the ID is not found, we have not returned anything other than that, right? So we are just doing what we are simply doing, get. So we're directly doing it as get. So we are not writing it as service dot get by ID. ID is present. If it is present, then do something, or else do something is not what we are writing, right? So obviously, so if I use that, then in that case it will return me the ID, or else it will return me even the response entity as not found or anything that we like. Fine. So in this session we have talked about how do we get all the data and get the data based on the ID provided. So in the later sessions, again, two more functionalities are left, that is the put mapping, which is to update, and lastly the delete mapping, that is used to delete the data. Fine. So hope you are enjoying these sessions, and if there is any doubt, obviously you can always connect with me on LinkedIn, and if you're liking in the series, share and subscribe it with your friends. Thank you. See you in the next video.